It's a showtime!
Paprika is a Japanese animation written and directed by Satoshi Kon that came out in 2006. So Paprika was last week's Patron Poll winner, and I was really excited by that fact, obviously, because this is a film that I've known about for quite a long time. I've basically known about this film ever since I saw Inception, which is basically when it came out. So this is a film that I obviously heard about because of Inception's existence. Because all I've heard about Paprika is that Inception took so much from this film. And obviously, I only knew that to an extent. Like, I only heard that this film took, like, more of its conceptual core ideas. Like, ideas that revolve around a machine that allows people to dive into people's dreams and just have these, like, group dream experiences. So, like, that's pretty much all I knew. That's as far as that went. And Satoshi Kon is an animation filmmaker that I haven't really dived enough into yet. I saw Perfect Blue in recent times. I believe I watched and reviewed that like 4 or 5 months ago. And Perfect Blue really blew me away. I just loved the morbid psychological element to the film and just how relentless it was with its graphic content. And it's crazy because Perfect Blue was another film that Darren Aronofsky kind of, I don't say ripped off, but took a lot of ideas from in terms of his film Black Swan. I guess Satoshi Kon's films are just films that American filmmakers just love getting their greasy paws all over. So yeah, with all that being said, I was obviously pretty excited to see this film. And after watching Paprika, here's what I'll say about Paprika. The amount of imagination and creative effort that was poured into this film, not only with its beautiful animation, but just like in terms of its conceptual ideas, and just how meticulous all these details are in this film is absolutely stunning. I mean, it's breathtaking stuff. And yes, it's quite obvious and easy to tell that Inception took quite a bit from this film in terms of its concept. But I was actually quite surprised how much of this film stands alone, totally separate from Inception, because this film offers a lot that Inception doesn't. First of all, it's a lot darker and a lot more disturbing. And that was something that I didn't even expect going into this film, and I have no idea why that is. Because Perfect Blue is a perfect example of Satoshi Kon's uncompromising vision, and even though it gets quite graphic and really disturbing, he's somebody that just is unwilling to compromise on his vision, and Paprika kind of displays the same attributes. And yeah, I'm not quite sure why I didn't expect that going into Paprika. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I was just expecting this to be so much like Inception, and Inception doesn't really have anything that's really boundary pushing or really that dark. But Paprika does. I mean, there are scenes in this film that I could see a lot of people having a difficult time watching. Just because of, again, just how unforgiving it is with like the display of certain themes in certain situations. And that was an aspect of the film that I really liked. And it really plays a hand into this film's character themes and overall themes that have to do with sexuality and obsession and just the subconscious desires. And there are many moments in this film where certain characters just have this really creepy smile and just give out this really haunting laugh. And it was really creepy, but I remember I was watching this with my partner, and I'd never seen Paranoia Agent, but it's an anime that Satoshi Kon is also behind and is also the creator of. And she's seen it, and whenever those situations would occur in Paprika, she'd be like, that's so Paranoia Agent. Like, she could immediately tell that this was the person that made Paranoia Agent, even though she hadn't known that beforehand. And I just thought that was really neat, just to see that this is the kind of filmmaker that has certain, like, staples to him, and really, like, noticeable reoccurring styles, to where anybody who is familiar with their work can watch it and be like, oh yeah, that's so Satoshi Kon. I just think that's really neat, and that's something that I really admire in a filmmaker as well. There's also a scene in this movie where a character goes to a movie theater, and like there's a bunch of posters of all the films that are currently playing, and then you see a poster for the film Tokyo Godfathers, which is another film that Satoshi Kon made. And I just thought that was kind of neat. It reminded me so much of what Stanley Kubrick did in A Clockwork Orange, where Alex DeLarge is walking around in the vinyl store, and where the scene stops, you have like right there in the center the vinyl album for 2001: A Space Odyssey. I just think stuff like that can be kind of neat. But conceptually, in terms of how this film explores like the dreamlike state, I do prefer this more than Inception, just because I feel like in Inception, it really only tries to give Leonardo DiCaprio's character some kind of background substance. Like, it's kind of all about him. But in this film, like, through the meshing of all these dreams, the film kind of offers a lot to say about a lot of different characters in this film. And I just love how it used dreams to kind of explore this Freudian angle about how dreams can tell us a lot about our anxieties, our fears, our desires. And I just love the way this film demonstrated all that, because I felt like it felt more grounded. And for me, it also just felt more haunting and disturbing. So there are many aspects of this film that I really enjoy and just really admired from a filmmaking perspective. But I will say one thing about this film, and I gotta say, it kind of dragged the film down drastically for me. Like, I still think that this is a pretty good film, don't get me wrong. But there was this thing about this film that kept pulling me out and made me feel quite detached throughout its runtime. And it's the same problem like that Inception has, and it's the fact that, I'm not kidding you, like 90 to 95% of the dialogue is expositional dialogue. Almost every piece of dialogue in this film is just there to explain something about a character, explain something about the plot, explain some intricate thing about this, pseudoscience thing that's happening in the film, about some crazy machine, some crazy fictional machine that we still don't understand even after they explain it. And I just felt like I wasn't able to really get in touch with these characters as much as I wanted to, and really get that engaged in the story as much as I wanted to, because it just felt like the writing is only there to really make sure that everybody understands all these little details about it. And it sucks because it feels really unnatural, and I felt like if there was a more authentic and natural sense of this film's dialogue and the writing, then I would have loved it a lot more. But since the vast majority of the dialogue in this film is just this kind of artificial expository delivery, it was really hard for me to get truly sucked into this film and, feel for these characters. And I totally get that there are some aspects of this film to where you really do need a character to explain, like, in terms of concept and in terms of story. You need there to be some sort of deliverance on that. But there are many times where either it was just really unnecessary for the audience to know certain things, or it could have totally been conveyed through some other clever way, whether it's visual or through some other clever use of dialogue. And because there are moments in this film where, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, something is visually conveyed to you, and then the next second there's a character that has to reinforce exactly what you just saw, because it thinks you're just unable to interpret the images. But overall, I still really like this film. There is too much about this film that I find admirable, and there's so much imagination and creativity that is poured into this film that really makes it impossible for you not to appreciate it. So I'm going to give Paprika a solid 7 out of 10. Yeah, I think this is totally worth a watch. And what I recommend to you is, if you haven't seen it before, don't go into this really thinking it's like Inception, because it's not. This is a film that is, even with Inception in mind, it feels like it's totally its own monster and has a tendency to dive into things differently in terms of its concept and its characters. But I do feel like what both films have in common is just this way over-reliant and overuse of expository dialogue that, in my opinion, most of the time is really unnecessary or could have been conveyed in a totally different way. But as I said, I still highly enjoyed this film. I'm not sure how many of you guys out there have seen it, but I know this is a pretty popular anime, so I wouldn't be surprised if the vast majority of the people watching this right now has already seen it. But either way, that's all I got to say about Paprika. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about it, please give it that thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.